Hi.
Hi. This is Matthew.
This is Eric.
And we're on the Odd Atheist Friends.
Hi, I'm Aaron Ron.
Hi, I'm Andrew Torres of Opening Arguments.
Hi, I'm Dr. Ben Davis.
Hi, this is David G. McAfee.
Hello, I'm Dr. Hector Garcia.
Hello, I'm Dr. Jerry Coyne.
Hi, I'm Nate Phelps.
Hi, I'm Shelley Siegel.
Hi, I'm Thomas Smith of Serious Inquiries Only.
Hi, I'm Seth Andrews. I'm host of thethinkingatheist.com.
Hi, I'm Ethan Siegel.
Hi, I'm Robert Stanley of the Right to Reason podcast, and I took a left at the Valley.
And I loved it.
I know we shouldn't have to scream that we're atheists. You know, we don't have non-astrologers and all that. But with the religious people taking over the world, I mean, we can either speak up or be pushed into a corner.
I'm proud to be an atheist, a skeptic, a non-believer, an infidel, a heathen. I call it how I see it. I say it's ignorance and you just call it faith and unsubstantiated claims. That's something to be ashamed. I'm an atheist.
Coming at you after being overstuffed with turkey. This is Left of the Valley. My name is Kevin, and somebody threatened to beat the crap out of me.
Oh.
Kick the crap out of me.
What? How come?
Well, I told him good luck. I was on a liquid diet.
Oh, what a way to start the day.
Joining me as usual is the incredible, edible, amazing Nancy.
Oh, that's me. That's
Hello,
me.
dear.
I got a t-shirt to prove it.
We're riding solo today, you and I.
Yes, we are, again.
And this is going to be an interesting little show. It's the last show of the year.
It is.
Hope your Christmas was merry and joyful and full of bright stuff.
In its own unique way, it was.
Was Santa good to you this year?
Was Santa good to me? Santa and I have had a really good relationship over a lot of years. So actually, he stops off.
Yeah.
We have a snack and a chat.
Absolutely.
Yeah, feed the reindeer. So that's a high point of my Christmas Eve. Really.
You know what? Anybody else, I would doubt it. With you, I would not doubt that at all.
Doubt it? No. We really have a sort of a symbiotic relationship.
Yeah.
And he is as nice as you think he is.
Oh, I don't doubt that at all.
Yeah.
So today we're going to have, it's the last show of the year, so we're just going to have a look back into 2018, and we're going to go through the top 10. It's going to be a big top 10 show today.
Hard to pick 10 out of the dozens that we do, isn't it?
Well, you know what? The funny thing is usually it's fairly easy because you just go by the amount of downloads or views and stuff like that. And you can pretty much pick a top 10. But this year it was very difficult because there are several platforms, right? You have like YouTube, and you have like Spreaker and Stitcher, and then you have like Blog Talk and iTunes and all that stuff. And the numbers were way off scale from one to the other. And it was like, whoa, okay. So it was, normally when you have a show that's really, really popular, it's popular across all the platforms. Not this year. It was very different in that sense.
Well, was it because some of the platforms themselves are more popular than others?
Maybe.
Where people are, say, I'm guessing, but I don't know, that more people would be on YouTube than SoundCloud or vice versa?
I have no idea.
Yeah.
Our most popular downloads that come from iTunes. That's usually where most of our listeners are listening from.
Yeah, okay.
And that's perfectly fine. So anyway,
they're listening.
Yeah.
Wherever you're listening from, we love you. Thank you. Keep
absolutely
keep listening to us, and we hope we make it worth your while.
So we did a top 10. It was not an easy compilation to make. If it would have been like a top 15, it would have been even worse because we had a lot of shows that were very neck and neck in the amount of ratings and all that. So we had to pick 10, so we picked 10.
Oh, good. Since you're the only one that's heard them, and I'm going to hear them for the first time, it'd be fun. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
But before all this, we have...
Mail time. Mail time. The mail's here.
We got a message from John, and he reads, Hi, great that you featured the iconic John and Yoko for a Christmas show, right? She deserves equal credit. Track in your outgoing message, which was on point. Unlike you, I was around the time of original release, and at the height of the Vietnam conflict, even in Britain, it resonated strongly. It's become fashionable amongst some to criticize John and Yoko for being simplistic in their outlooks and solution, and that may be true. However, don't the slightest message resonate and last longest? I should say simplest message resonate and last longest. He's got a point. My son lives in Liverpool and recently walked past a Happy Xmas War is Over poster in a refresh of the message. This gave me a chance to give him some context, and he is now going to watch Ken Burns' excellent Vietnam documentary. Keep up the good work, John.
Oh, how nice.
P.S. And this is where we know we have some very smart listeners, because he summed up a good point here, because this all came especially at the when we had this huge kind of debate about the Baby It's Over that song.
Baby It's Cold Outside.
Yes, thank you. Baby It's Cold Outside. And he says, P.S. banning songs because they may trigger a small percentage of the population will render society devoid of any challenging art. Boom.
Ooh.
Right there.
Thank you, John.
That was a great point, John.
He could have saved us 15 minutes of conversation.
He totally could have.
Yeah.
He totally could
wow.
have.
Exactly.
That's a great point that I failed to make, and I'm reminded, I believe it was Winston Churchill, that when they started doing the Monument Men in World War II, and people were saying, why are you spending money trying to save pieces in a museum and all that? And he says, if we're not saving art, if we're not fighting for this, what are we fighting for? Arts and culture, exactly.
Yeah.
So
exactly.
Anyway, that debate will keep going, I'm sure.
No, that's such a good point. It's good to have listeners that take the time to interact with us and let us know.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, John. I really appreciate that. So, my dear, let's have a quick look back at the year in review. So, is there anything that sticks out to you? We had a weird year. It was a very weird year. We made lots of new friends.
We did.
Some friends that we had have come and gone. We had Dominic's a new little friend here. He's come on the show. That happened this year.
I know, that youthful energy is so much fun.
Scott, that used to be part of our show, he moved on to greener pastures.
He did.
And we kind of miss him.
When he was here, he was just such a great addition, to our family.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and we're glad he came. He's welcome to come back anytime.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And it's changes. What can I say, right?
But
we
that's
just go
a good
on.
thing.
Yeah, I think so.
We operate in the now. I mean, with our show is so spontaneous that it's a good thing because we're current and it keeps us all on our toes. And I think it's best for the listeners too. We don't know what to expect, so they don't know what to expect, but they know it's going to be fun and interesting.
I think so too.
Yeah, it's just great.
So this is not in any chronological order in any way, shape, or form. So let's go right ahead and do the top 10 as voted by you, the listener. By how many downloads and views you guys had during the year, the top 10, the best of Left of the Valley 2018.
Okay, and I have my favorite, but I'm not going to tell you what it is right now. I'm going to wait to see how it turns out.
Okay.
And then if it doesn't, then we'll have a little chat.
Fair enough.
Number 10.
All right, coming in at number 10. During the year, we met a very interesting astrophysicist. I still can't say it. Astrophysicist.
A sky doctor.
Yeah, there we go. Sky doctor named Ethan Siegel.
We did.
And we had this very interesting show on the science of Star Trek. This was a man who's not only just absolutely passionate about science, but he has a way to just communicate with you with a hint of sarcasm and a hint of bubbly, kind of in your face, kind of put it things there, and he's a joy to listen to.
Great communicator.
And he's become a friend, and we'll certainly have him on the show again for sure. So let's listen in to Ethan Siegel and the science of Star Trek.
And Treknology, the science of Star Trek, from tricorders to warp drive.
Fantastic, and we're going to talk about that today. And I have to mention that he sports one of the best beers I have ever seen.
Oh, I gotta see this.
No, you gotta see this. He's got a
absolutely.
fantastic beer.
Make sure you get a load of this. I've got my beard here. I've got a mustache here. I'll give you a close-up look.
He is beyond
manly. You get people who make fish faces. I bet you've never seen a grown man make a catfish face before. And you guys went way left of the valley.
Way left. We're already back in the valley at this point.
Ethan, you have yet to see left.
For me, Star Trek was really this fusion of two fantastic things. On the one hand, it was this nexus of science and technology and how it's developing and how it influences our lives and how it empowers us to be more powerful creatures, to be more impactful, to make a difference in the world. But Star Trek also brought with that, for good or for evil. Star Trek really brought with us this concept that technology by itself is only a neutral thing, but it's how we use it. It's how we apply it to our world. Do we use this for our own personal gain? Do we use this to enrich ourselves? Or do we use it for the betterment of all of humanity? Do we use it to overcome our most base impulses? And do we instead use it to alleviate the greatest problems facing the world? Things like hunger, inequality, racism, bigotry, food scarcity, water scarcity, all of these are problems that can be addressed. And when Star Trek brought them up, it brought them up in a way that we could address them because it was through this fictional lens. But at the same time, it envisioned this near utopian future where, yes, humanity still had problems, and, the Federation, the civilization still had problems, conflicts, wars, different parties with different stakes and different interests. But it also said, we need to look at what's right and what's wrong, who gets affected, what are the different things at play, what are our principles, and it embraced an interesting type of philosophy that I don't think we get to see very often, or certainly hadn't seen very often at the time, that I like to call moral particularism, where you do have your principles, but you don't adhere to one guiding principle over everything all the time. Sometimes you need to violate that principle because something even more important is at stake.
And that was Ethan Siegel in the Science of Star Trek. We started
He's
with
such a fantastic
guy.
absolutely.
He's a great science teacher, and we kind of started out a show that we thought we'd be talking a lot about technology. We ended up talking a lot about philosophy instead.
But that's what the point that he.
That's the point he was making. Exactly.
He was making, but the way he phrases it, it's like, well, most of us know that that's what Star Trek was about, but he gives you a perspective that makes you think of it just a little differently. You get thoughts about it that you didn't have before. It enriches the original experience.
Absolutely,
he's great at doing that.
Absolutely, and right now I believe he has this trip he does with Astral Tours, I believe it's called, where he's going to, is it Iceland? And they're going to watch the Aurora Borealis.
Wow.
And he's going to be your tour guide, and this is something he might be doing on an annual basis. So I would actually recommend you look into that if that's your type of thing. God knows I would go absolutely.
I was going to say when you're going to get your ticket.
I would absolutely go there to hang with Ethan and just talk, in the middle of the night as we're looking at the sky, and all this light show would be absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, that's a trip of a lifetime. Does he do that once a year, or?
I think this year's the first one, so we'll see. We'll keep an eye on that for sure.
Yeah, let's save our loonies and toonies.
Number 9.
Coming in at number 9, sometimes we have shows that, we always have an atheist flavor show, obviously, and we always have a touch of humor in our shows, but some of our shows are actually quite serious sometimes. And
we can be serious.
Coming in at number 9 was a show that we did when we had somebody called Jessica Terwheel. And she's a therapist, and basically the show was called Knowing About De-Escalation in Conflict Situations. This was a show that we basically originally did because we thought a lot of people, especially with the gun violence in the States, especially with the police, de-escalation is one of those arts that is kind of disappearing. People respond really quickly with higher firepower or higher levels of violence, and we thought maybe, for the lay person, it was better to actually calm it down a bit, take it down a notch, and see if you can actually de-escalate the situation, no matter where you are, And Jessica did some fantastic work explaining that to us, and it was an interesting show, for sure. It was a bit like a crash course into how to handle people.
Yeah, and we went off in a couple of different directions that were surprising.
Yeah.
But, she was an excellent guest. I hope we have her back.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So let's listen in as Jessica explains to us how to de-escalate in conflict situations.
Well, I worked as two fields, actually. Therapy, psychotherapy, just what everybody imagines it to be. That's what I did. And I still do that. And for 20 years, I've been a forensic psychologist, which means treatment and diagnosis with the criminally insane.
So she can totally take care of us.
We're right where we should be with the person that can deal with us in the best possible way. I feel so comfortable.
Nancy's an assassin for hire. Is there something you could give us some tips as to not enrage her? A couple shows ago, she really beat the crap out of me.
Thing that happens when people get into a fight is they, for just 1 second, they forget to reflect on how they come across. That's the main thing that goes wrong. When you forget how you come across, and you see that on Twitter all the time, people just put something out and they have no idea how it comes across. And they just want it out there. And that's usually how people start a fight. And it's an impulse. We call it an impulse. And technically it's a lack of self-control.
And that was therapist Jessica Terweel.
I'm trying to remember. She was so well qualified in several different fields. Am I correct? Was she dealing with criminals on the forensic side?
Yes,
That's
exactly.
What I thought.
Yeah, she was on the forensic side, and
yeah.
her work is actually fairly secret to the point that she's actually unlisted as to where she is, her address, her phone number, and all that stuff. Yeah, so
that's right.
Of course, for sake of privacy, we're not going to reveal that either.
No,
but it was an interesting crash course into how to de-escalate situations, and we made a lot of light of situations, and she was very patient with us.
Well, that's part of her professional toolbox. Is patience is way up there when you're dealing with human beings.
Especially when you're dealing with us.
Exactly. Or she'd be a patient rather than the therapist.
And
very good.
The funny thing is about Jessica, as we found out about her, is she wrote into the show, and she wrote into the show with a question that we had said something on the show that she didn't quite agree. I had said something on the show that she didn't quite agree with, and she had made some valid points. Then we started chatting about this the question in particular there, and then I started asking her, hey, what do you do for a living, and blah blah blah, and then she explained that she was a therapist and all that. I said, oh, well, that's interesting. So the more we discussed, the more I thought, hey, you know what? Why don't you come on the show and explain? And this is how it all started.
That was great. It couldn't have worked out.
Yeah, you just never know where this podcast thing is going to take you sometimes.
Which is why we keep doing it.
All right, moving along.
Excellent guest. Yeah, she definitely was in the top 10.
Number 8.
All right, coming in on number 8, we have an old favorite, Dr. Daryl Ray.
Oh,
we love Daryl Ray.
We just can't. You just can't say enough really good
stuff about Daryl. For sure. And
happy every time he comes on. It's a lot of fun.
And we had a show with him. He's always been a crowd favorite here for our listeners. And we had a show called Why We Cheat, which is a very interesting little topic because it's one of those things that people don't usually talk about. We know that a lot of people cheat, but
doesn't
why?
He specialize in what people don't talk about?
He does.
Shines a light on them, brings them out, makes them part of the discussion so that people feel as though this isn't something I have to, hide from myself and others. I can bring it out and make myself a healthier individual or understand others better. He's so good at that.
Daryl has become a good friend of the show, and through him we have met some other interesting
haven't we?
Experts in the field, and goodness, he's always welcome back. Actually, we need to bring him back. It's been a little while since we talked to Daryl. We need to do another show with him fairly soon. It's like we need a dose of Daryl.
We do. I wonder at this point. I mean, I know he really likes us, but I wonder when you call him and say, "Hey, Daryl, it's Kevin." I wonder if he goes, "Oh my Lord, what do they need me for now?"
I could not say either way, but if I was to put money, I'd say most of them probably do. Not just him. All right, so let's listen in to Daryl Ray as he explains why we cheat. Give us the lowdown. Why is it? Why do people cheat?
Well, let's put it this way. I think we want to turn that whole idea on its head. Because humans are incredibly bad at monogamy. Monogamy is about the most unnatural invention humans have ever come up with. So if we're really, really, really bad at something, how can we expect people to follow it? Mm-hmm. There's never been a culture that tried monogamy that didn't utterly fail at it. The evidence is pretty strong. The genetic evidence as well as the social evidence. You can look at right now, the divorce rate is at least 50%. And this. This is a trick question here, but let's see if you can answer it. Do you know the single biggest cause of divorce?
Marriage?
No.
That's where I was going. So so far
you're close. You're close, but no cigar. The single biggest cause of divorce is monogamy. The evidence shows that at least, probably on average, at least one out of every 4 generations, there's some hanky-panky going on. Mm-hmm. And so your great-great-great-grandmother fooled around with somebody else, and that's the genes you're really related to, not the guy that she thought was the grandfather.
And that was Dr. Del Rey.
He does have an advanced degree in hanky-panky, doesn't he?
I've got such great memories with Daryl. I mean, one of the first things he ever told me, I always use that. First of all, I got to say, whatever Dr. Del Rey says, if I repeat that to people, most often I'll get a stunned look. That look of, oh my God, you're right. Why didn't I think about this before? Mm-hmm. And I'll always remember that time where Daryl looked at me and says, Kevin, do you know what the definition of a pervert is? I said, no, Daryl, what is it? He says, it's somebody has better sex than you.
He knows.
Oh, yeah.
The funny thing is when we had Daryl on, mm-hmm. and when we left the show previously, knowing that he was coming, and I said, well, what's his topic? And you said, why we cheat. Mm-hmm. I was thinking in the back of my mind, I was so naive for some reason. I'm going, we're going to talk about taxes and people on exams, and
cheating
for some reason, the hanky-panky Daryl just was. I was oblivious to that, and I was thinking, that's going to be interesting. Why we cheat to get ahead in different ways, and of course not. Daryl is going to take his spin on what he knows best.
That's the thing about Daryl. He can talk to you like your guy at the bar, and tell you the most raunchy jokes and stuff like that. But at the same time, he has such an air of professionalism that you can't help but listen to the man anyway. He's like that sweet uncle you have that you just, no matter what he says, you just nod in agreement. He's just fantastic.
Because he's right there with you. He's so open about who he is and his own experiences, and he comes with this breadth of knowledge and understanding, and he's fun. He's just a lot of fun. I mean, how can you resist him? He's great.
I often dream of being able to take you guys on tour across the U.S. and, stopping by Daryl in Kansas and saying hello. But, I'll have to win the lottery for that to happen. I know.
Wouldn't that be great?
Left to the Valley on tour. That'd be great. All right, moving on.
Number 7.
All right, coming in to number 7, Lucky 7. We met a couple of interesting guys, and they were odd atheist friends. We met Matthew and Eric. Now these guys, we call them the odd couple of atheism, and it's exactly that. He's one of them is an ex-military, the other one's a transgendered man. And one of them used to be a conservative fundamental Christian, and then they came together, they were pen pals, and we just had a blast with them,
I know, you never know who you're going to find in life that turns out to be your I was going to say the
Partner in
intellectual
crime?
companion.
Yeah, exactly.
To be able to share ideas that openly with someone who's so vastly different. That's great.
Yeah,
It works.
They were fun
On
to hang
occasion
with.
it works, and here it really works well.
Absolutely. They were fun to hang with, and we've
Yeah,
become
they were.
friends since, and we should have him back on the show. All these people, we need to have him back on the show soon.
Yeah.
I'm going to have to make a list and plan in advance for about 3-4 months now.
We just have to have a party with everybody there at the same time.
Oh my God, that'd be amazing. All right, so let's listen in to Matthew and Eric, the odd atheist friends, when they took a left in the valley.
And we're both atheists, and we met like 10 years ago when I was a teenage girl, and we were both on a blogging site. And it sounds really creepy when I put it that way, but...
The comments of Matthew and Eric are not necessarily those of Left of the Valley subsidiaries.
And I was, when I was younger, I was a Bible believing, the Bible is the written true word of God, every last bit of it, fundamentalist Christian asshole. And so, like I've said in the past on the show, it's like I would have called Eric all kinds of horrible names. Now I call him all kinds of terrible names just for other reasons.
Yeah, but at least it's with love now, right? There's
At least it's with love now.
It's not Christian love, it's like real love.
Yeah, exactly. I've got to ask you a fast question because this is something we ask our guests, but since we haven't had a show in a while, I'm hurting to do it.
Hey, you're the guest. Don't turn the tables on us. You're the guest.
Play Dungeons and Dragons.
What's that?
Dungeons and Dragons.
What about it?
It's awesome.
Did you play?
Well, I haven't played it, but I'm a huge fan, and I really would love to.
I did play as a kid, yes.
You did play? Okay,
yes.
Great. Okay.
I didn't.
Just wanted to know.
It was the devil growing up with me.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, she grew up as a fundamentalist.
I literally talked about it once, and my uncle was like, "You're gonna let the demons in." I'm like, "Oh my God."
I had one of the elders of my church. His wife said to me that I was like casting spells and all that kind of stuff. I'm like, rolling dice is not casting spells. But anyways,
yeah. And that was Matthew and Eric, odd atheist friends, which are now new friends.
And that's such a good title for their podcast.
It is a good title.
And I think the wonderful thing about atheism is that we come from such diverse backgrounds, and we all have had experiences that, we want to leave in the past, we want to move on, and we're accepting of people who have made that journey. It's been very different than ours, most of the time.
Yep.
But we're always open to welcoming that person who has gone through those mental gymnastics and emotional ups and downs, because we understand we've been there ourselves, and we, at this point, it's, we don't care where you were. It's nice to be able to discuss where we are and who we are now.
Yes, and no matter how different we are in our mannerisms, in our points of view about other things, the fact that we took about the same kind of journey together is what actually kind of bonds us, and we accept it. I mean, they speak differently than we do. I mean, I always love Matthew's bleep you with a cactus, he always says. It's not something that we'd be saying on our show all that much, but it doesn't matter whether or not he says these kind of things. He's part of the crew nonetheless. And we accept that, and I think it's one of the great strengths of atheism. Although as much as they say Christianity is good for fostering a sense of community, atheism is great for fostering a sense of acceptance.
Oh yeah, I think so.
Excellent. All right.
Number 6.
All right, coming in at number 6, we met Robert Stanley.
Oh,
and
Robert.
We developed a now very, very strong friendship with Robert from the Right to Reason podcast.
I know.
What can you say about Robert Stanley?
Oh, you could say so many things, but I don't know whether or not you could be sued for them or not.
Robert has become a very good friend, almost a confidant. He throws guests my way, I throw guests his way, and we know his show has almost become a sister show to us.
I think it is. I think it has been.
I am certainly an ardent follower of his show now. I love the way he handles himself, and his a lot of his interviews are just absolutely fantastic. I think his show is actually better than ours, and he really loves our show on top of that. He's become a big promoter of us.
Oh, he does, and it's fun for me, having lived in Texas for so many years, the fact that he's in Temple, Texas, we have a lot of fun with that too.
I'm sure.
And in a way, it's I go back to Texas. Listen, not that he has a Texas accent, because he doesn't, but just knowing where he is and in Texas, it brings back a lot of good memories for me. So that even enhances my personal relationship with him. He's great. He really
he's such an easygoing guy, right?
Yeah.
It's like, hey, Robert, I need a favor. It's done. It's done right away. It's like, hey, Robert, do you have a 30-second spot I can use to promote your show? It was done. It's like the guy doesn't stop. He's a machine.
No, and what's really fun is the listeners have no idea what goes on, behind the scenes. But while we're waiting and Robert is kind of gearing up, he is so funny. And God. he's so meticulous at what he wants, and he's like stream of consciousness and funny at the same time, getting ready. It's just like, we ought to can this and put this on as a show. So people don't realize they're missing a lot because they don't hear what's going on when the mic is off.
I personally think that Robert could have done this professionally, for sure.
Oh, sure.
He's got a great voice.
Question.
He's got great talent.
Oh, yeah.
And, anyway, so here's a clip of Robert Stanley and the Right to Reason. So joining us live on the line is Robert Stanley for a live recording without any pants on. He is the host of the Right to Reason podcast. He's a snappy dresser and a snazzy dancer. Robert, thank you so much for joining us at Left of the Valley.
Hey, happy to be here. I'm really I'm a little nervous. I had messed up my scheduling, and I thought I was going on a cooking show today. I got like 17 fucking jokes about asparagus loaded up. I have nothing for atheism, and so I'm gonna wing it.
You should still try to sneak them in.
Trying to get out of that whole mess because I got nothing back, and I moved to Texas, and then I eventually had my firstborn kid, and right around the time she gets 5 years old, that's kind of that age of, reason, right? Where they can decipher between heaven and hell or whatever. And it kind of hit me like, what kind of God would send this little kid to hell?
Yeah.
And that's really when really that moment, and that silent moment came back. Very, very dramatic moment for me because I remember hyperventilating. A lot of people are like, when did you become an atheist? It's like, well, it wasn't just one time, right? I mean, well, that was my one time, if there was ever one, when it just hit me. And I had a panic attack. I remember just I had like this little workbench in my garage and just holding on to it with my left hand, and just kind of the other hand was on my chest, and I just thought, like, holy shit, God's an asshole, And it wasn't long after that I thought, this silence is bullshit, man. I will say the way I started the podcast was super fucking stoned.
That's the best way to start everything.
And like I'm not like a big weed guy. My wife, she loves smoking. She smokes every day. I'm just it's not for me. Every once in a while, just to rehabilitate the cannabinoid receptors, maybe once a month or something. But anyway, but I was so nervous. I'm like, I got to calm down. And I got R&R Raw coming on for my first episode.
Wow!
For your first episode?
Any listeners, find that in Left at the Valley's archives. That was a great talk. But anyway, so I got to talk to this, my hero, one of my heroes, at least, right? So I got super high, and like the whole conversation, I'm just like, whoa, like Neo, and it was a good talk though. Somehow it got into drugs. I don't know how that happened.
I wonder.
Oh God, this clip cracks me up every time.
I know. I really have listeners who haven't listened to Right to Reason. Really, because
you need to.
Yeah, occasionally
you
you catch Robert sober, and intellectually, the intellectual switch is on, and it's just a great show. It really is. You learn so much, and his guests are. I know we're going over the top here with Robert, but we love him.
Yeah, we absolutely love him. He is so relatable. He is such a buddy. He's such a great guy to have in your corner. And anyway, The Right to Reason, I totally recommend it. Well, we recommend a lot of shows, but one of my favorites by far, for sure. All right, moving on.
Number 5.
Coming in at number 5, we met Stephen Woodford and the Rationality Rules. The channel Rationality Rules. Elegant fella, British. We just had a blast with him.
We did.
We absolutely did. He was nothing but charming and eloquent the whole time we were explaining with him, and God knows we're going to have him back on for another show where he's going to come with his buddies Thomas Westbrook and Rachel Oates, because they also have a podcast Here and How. So we're totally going to have this guy back on. But he was nothing but charming, that man.
Oh, yeah.
I even called him, I believe I called him the pretty boy of atheism. So we totally had a blast with him. And I'm not sure we made a great super first impression as Canadians.
It depends. I mean, if he really likes, slumming on the other side of the world, we're here.
Yeah, absolutely.
We can be charming.
We can be charming. All right, so let's check in with the host of Rationality Rules. I just want to call you the pretty boy of atheism, because he's got this nice facial hair, the British accent. No. He's got the
beautiful long locks.
Yeah, I know.
I am very jealous of.
I totally got this man crush there on Steven. It's just totally cool.
Oh.
Oh my gosh.
You see, this is two things. It's like, wow, thank you very much. At the same time, it's look at my competition. All right, that
wasn't aimed at us, was it?
I won't be able to score any more collabs after that comment. In the UK, if you look at stats, we have far less religiosity. But the secret there is not that we're smarter or that we're figuring this out. It's just we don't have that presence of strong faith. Rather, people have fallen into their own interpretations of religion, but call themselves non-religious or New Age spirituality, etc. So we have in the UK, it's very much based in that kind of area, and the difference is quite huge.
Right up here at this show, we're very used to dealing with death because Nancy's a assassin for hire. So we're not too concerned.
Should I be sitting?
She could snap on us any day, and that'll be the last show we'll ever do.
It's wonderful because it keeps our guests very respectful.
I was about to say, is this going to be my demise if I answer wrongly?
Well, we can't say one way or the other.
Depends on the views for the show. If you get low views, you might get a visit.
I mean, there is a moral component to this, but, as you pointed out. But
so, if Nancy's moral philosophy is moral assassination, I'm interested.
So, Nancy, is your moral philosophy moral assassination?
Of course.
I love how
immoral assassination. I don't feel as though I'm going to take the neutral route on this one. Whatever needs assassinating, why eliminate a potential assassination?
Yeah, absolutely.
Exactly.
Go whichever way goes, whichever way the knife goes, right?
Whichever way. I've got a way to deal with it.
I love how our guests, we can go into the completely silly like that, and they just jump in with us. They always do, and you're thinking, it's very... I can probably count on one hand the guests that were really stumped by these kind of comments and didn't jump in, and the vast majority of them actually do, and Stephen was just fantastic in that sense. He was,
and he's a multi-talented guy.
Oh yes.
He's able to do
the
artistic and the intellectual, and he really was. Yeah, we got to have him back.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
If you listen to the show, there was one question I asked him out of the blue there because I was asking about there's a lot of conservative media talk about, no-go zones by Muslims and stuff like that. And I thought, that's got to be a crock. That's got to be, there's no way this is this bad. And I asked him that question, if it was actually exaggerated, and he said no. And I was completely shocked by that. I was just about, what?
Yeah, I remember that.
I thought for sure he would say, no, of course it's wildly exaggerated. Yeah, there's some frictions here and there, but he said, no, it's not. And I thought, oh my God. And also, we might have to actually take a deeper look into that, because I think it's a subject that's quite worthy of taking a look into.
Oh, if he's willing to come back on that topic, that would be fabulous.
There's another reason to bring him back. Absolutely.
There's always a reason.
There's always a reason.
Once you get, and we have so many, once you have that good guest that can communicate about his or her passion or knowledge, and they love to be able to share it with us, they can come back a zillion times.
Absolutely.
And it's a brand new show.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
All right, moving on.
Number 4.
Coming in at number 4, we have a tie.
Oh.
So we actually have 2 little clips.
Okay.
First of all, we have with the show that we did called KSA, the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, and Eli Bosnick. Now, of course, Eli carried the show, and if you don't know Eli, my God, we just had a blast. And this is also the show where we had Eli come in as the President of the United States. And we had to shoot Nancy with a tranquilizer dart for that to happen.
Yeah.
So
I still have a sore spot. I'm not going to tell you where, but I still have the after effects of.
That was a fun little skit we did there. That was really fun.
Yeah, we enjoyed
so
it.
let's listen in at Eli Bosnick.
That skit alone should be on the top 10 of all-time fun things that we do.
And it totally is. Let's listen in. All right, so we have a really special guest coming up, but my dear Nancy, I'm sorry I have to do this to you.
What is that? What is that?
Tranquilizer darts. I'm sorry, dear. Girls, get her! Get her!
You get the arm. I'll get the leg. Okay.
Ow, she's biting me! Get the duct tape! Duct tape! Get the duct tape!
I got her.
Perfect! Good! Ow! You're okay? Everybody okay?
I got a few claw marks on my arm.
She bit me.
It's that kung fu grip of hers.
My arm, guys.
Oh,
I think we need to take out her dentures.
I'm sorry, Nancy.
We should have thought of that
we just had to do that. I'm really, really sorry, but it's for your own good and it's for international relations. I'm so sorry. Okay. Now that is done, we can bring in our guests. Ladies and gentlemen, for the very first time in the history of Canadian podcasts, and maybe a podcast anywhere, I'd like to introduce to you, ladies and gentlemen, the 45th President of the United States, Donald J. Trump.
Thank you so much for having me, Alex. It's terrible you got kicked off YouTube. I want to say right now, I think it's a terrible thing they did. They shouldn't have kicked you off YouTube. They shouldn't have kicked you off Facebook. I'm going to talk to Zuckerberg. You probably shouldn't have called him a dirty Jew, but I'm going to have words. I'm going to tell you right now, Alex. I'm going to do my very best.
I certainly appreciate that, Mr. President, and we really thank you for being here, especially for the benefit of both our countries. Mr. Trump, we all know that you have a vast intellect, and I thought maybe for our audience, you would love to participate with us in a little pop quiz.
I love it. I'm the best at pop quizzes. I take all the pop quizzes. I pop them every time. Now I'm going to need a needle and a donkey and 3 balloons. I did this at Eric's 4th birthday party. It went so well. I mean, Eric cried the whole time, but I forget he's my son sometimes. So what are you going to do? You know what I'm saying? I'm ready. So just give me a needle and a thread.
Perfect. Now, this is based on a little podcast show that we love called Citation Needed, and wonderful little.
That sounds like not a lot of people listen to it.
No, well, it's actually quite a good podcast. I encourage a lot of people to listen to it. Maybe you should give it a try, Mr. President. Question the first. Now, we all know that for the President of the United States, security is a big, big issue. Now, the Secret Service does have code names, and, of course, the safety of the First Lady is of prime importance.
Oh, absolutely. Super care about, oh, God, it's on the tip of my tongue.
Melania.
God. Right, absolutely. Malala, right. So, she got shot in that face by the Taliban then. You guys see that episode of the Flintstones? It was weird.
Yes, it was very weird.
Anyway, security for Malala.
The code name for Melania from the Secret Service, is it A, Lady Marmalade? Is it B, Escape Shawshank Skank? Is it C, Really Don't Care Bear? Or is it D, The Other White Meat?
Okay, so I know it's not D because that's what I call her. That's a little fun thing between us. I know it's not B because that's what Antifa yells at her. I'm going to go with A. Is it A?
It is A, of course. Of course.
I got it right, 100% correct.
Fantastic.
I'm tweeting about this right now. According to recent polls, I am 100% correct.
Absolutely.
100% of the time. Send.
Now,
sorry. You were saying, Alex?
Of course. Now, of course, we all know that you have a trade war going on with Canada.
It's a terrible thing. It's a terrible thing that Canada's doing to us. I don't know if you know this, but their prime minister over there, he cheated. We were having an arm wrestle, and he cheated. He used his other hand the same time. And I told Mike that he's lucky because I was going to use my karate.
Oh.
I was going to use my karate. Yeah? Because Benny Nahu showed me some stuff. I was going to go Krav Maga. Krav Maga. You see these moves? Yes. I don't know if my camera's like, come on, Maga. Krav Maga.
Well,
Maga.
Why? Well, the public might not know why the President of the United States declared a trade war with Canada. Was it A, because you had stomach indigestion due to a poutine? Was it B, because you were jealous of Justin Trudeau's hair? Was it C, because there's a tape of a Canadian prostitute with maple syrup? Or was it D, because the hungry look Ivanka gave to Justin?
I'm definitely going to go with D. It's the hungry look Ivanka gave to Chester. I just want to say right now, it was very inappropriate. And the prostitute with the maple syrup, that was just a nice welcoming gift. The fact that Justin didn't take me up on it, that's his business, not mine.
I totally agree, Mr. President. Okay, third and final question. You're doing fantastic so far. We are basking in the glow of your intellect, sir.
Thank you.
Donald Trump has, of course, he's doing a fantastic job as president. He also needs some relaxed time. He needs to relax. He needs to have a couple pastime hobbies. What are Donald Trump's hobbies? A, does he like to enjoy King Jong udon noodles? B, does he like to listen to Rah Rah Rasputin by Boney M? C, does he have stormy discussion in the Oral Office? Or D, does he like to ignore Puerto Rico culture altogether?
Oh, it's that last one. I don't want to play that board game. Everyone always keeps saying, we should play that board game. That board game lost all its power. It's boring. I don't want to play that board game.
Fantastic. Mr. President, I can't thank you enough for coming on the show and being with us today. I know you're a very busy man. I know your time is limited. So we will let you go, and hopefully our countries can establish better relations in the future.
Thank you. I love it when countries rub together.
It's so funny, and we appreciate it.
I think you said it right. He's uncontainable.
He really is.
God, Eli Bosnick.
I mean, he can step up and do just about anything, anytime, with any material whatsoever, and you're laughing.
And you know the funny thing is we did the introduction there, and he comes as the president, and the first thing he does, he calls me Alex for Alex Jones. And Alex Jones had just been kicked off YouTube and iTunes and all that. Right away, he just cut my legs right from underneath me, and I was thinking, it's like he completely got me right there. It's like, oh my God, he's fast.
he's from the Robin Williams School of Comedy.
Oh,
yeah.
He is absolutely fantastic, and of course, he steals the show every time. So we love Eli Bosnick. Yeah. Well, speaking of comedians, of course, tied in with the same were the guys from Cognitive Dissonance. Can't really have one without the other, it would seem. So this is a more recent show. It's going to be interesting to see how well they do in the future as the people look for them in the archives. So here's also Tom and Cecil from Cognitive Dissonance. Well, joining us online are two people that, if you listen to podcasts, they don't really need not much of an introduction. One of them is a great fan of Canadian whiskey, and the other one is Eli Bosnick's best friend. They are snappy dressers and snazzy dancers. Tom and Cecil. Thank you so much for joining us.
I'm not a fan of Canadian whiskey, so
that's not what I heard.
You can properly call that shit whiskey.
It's
like it's the Coors Light of whiskey.
It's the varnish remover of whiskey.
Last time you were on the show, I believe you called it the beaver pelt squishing of whiskey or something like that.
That sounds about right.
It doesn't even have enough flavor to be offensive.
Yeah, it's shit you mix in other stuff. Like it is definitely a mixer.
Yeah, like I would mix it with like potting soil and like grow some marijuana or something.
Like maybe make some ice cubes out of it and put it in real whiskey.
There you go. I wouldn't want to do that. It might water it down too much.
Normally there's Kirsten and Christina with us, but they're.
I am so glad they're not here.
You can't
I am
say
so glad that they're not here.
You can't say that. Christina's like the biggest fan.
Wait till after.
Then I feel bad for it.
She's gonna be crushed. She's gonna be crushed.
Yeah, you say that now because you're not used to talking to us, but believe me, halfway through you're going to be begging for those girls. Begging, I tell you.
Remember that joke I made about how I'm glad they're not here? All right, that made-up letter you just read makes me feel bad about that.
Yeah, you want to take that back now, big mouth, huh? No, just kidding.
All right.
Yeah,
I'm not crying, you're crying.
Why is my wife sending you messages?
That's because I'm French.
They have almost as much fun as we do.
Oh, I know. It's
almost.
like they're like the American version of.
Yeah, exactly.
They're like the watered-down version of our podcast.
Yeah, but I think if they stick with it, they're going to be okay.
Yeah, I think these guys are going somewhere. They're going somewhere.
It's a flash in the pan.
Yeah, and it was only a $50 donation that got them a roast on their show. But for us Canadians, of course, that represents like $3,000.
Yeah, what do you got? You guys use money up there, or what? Cases of maple syrup.
Very colorful money. It's made
still
of
a barter
plastic
system, right? It's still
is 2 beaver pelts, gallon of maple syrup, one of those French Canadian hats that they wear.
Right? Yeah, you got to give it to one of their horse cops or something to deliver it.
Horse cops.
Yeah, when you get the big ones, you get the Moose People cop.
Moose cops.
Moose cops. And of course, that was Tom and Cecil mocking Canada.
On the one hand, they're dream guests because you turn the mic on and off they go.
You just sit back
and you just sit back and have a cup of coffee and every now and then you chime in, to kind of just.
The chiming in is the hard part.
That's the other thing I was going to get to, because by the time you think of something that would be really funny, they've gone past it, and here you are with this wonderful, funny line, and there's nothing you could do. There's nothing you could do with it. There's no place you could go, and you try. So next time I'm gonna. If there's something funny, and you can't. So you might as well just drink your coffee, put a little whiskey in it.
Little Canadian rye whiskey.
Little whatever it is, Royal. Crown Royal, and just let them go.
Oh yeah,
that's it.
Yeah, you don't even need to be there. You can just leave the microphone, walk away.
Exactly.
These guys will just be yakking the whole time.
And they won't even realize you're gone.
They are fantastic guests, and we love having them, and hopefully we can bring them on more often. And God knows, I was really flattered by the at some point during the show where Cecil mentions that we came to your show last time to talk about Citation Needed, and that was not prompted by me. I mean, he came out of that with the blue, and I was really flattered that he remembered.
Yeah.
And I said, wow, I was really, really shocked that you guys remember that, because these guys are in the world of atheism, let's face it, they're pretty big. And, we're a relatively small show, we're in a different country. We made a good impression for them to actually remember.
Yeah, that was really gracious.
Yeah, it was really gracious for them, and they basically said, oh, hey, we had a great time with you guys last time, we had a great time with you guys this time. I mean, so a good relationship is formed with them and us, and we'll certainly have them back on for sure.
Oh yeah, they have great chemistry, and it's fun to listen.
Yes,
but you got to listen fast to get.
You got to be quick. You got to be quick.
You got to have fast ears for those two.
All right, moving on.
Number 3.
Coming in at number 3, we have a show that was very interesting because we talked earlier on about Dr. Del Rey, but with Dr. Del Rey we met Dr. Veronica Drance.
Oh,
and we did a show about Soji 123
Wow.
and transgendered people.
Yeah.
This was all done in answer to a Chilliwack school trustee by the name of Barry Neufeld.
It was very local for us. It was
It was very local for
issue.
us, but
Yeah.
it was also, we did the show because, not because it was local for us, but especially because to speak more of the situation itself, which is not just a local situation. It's happening all over the United States, all over Canada, all over the world, about trans people and their rights are being trampled on. And I wanted to bring the science, because you hear all these groups out there, Culture Guard and all these idiots out there, they're basically doing the best to put the wool over your eyes. I said, no, let's bring in a psychologist, which was Dr. Del Rey, and let's bring in a biologist, which was Dr. Veronica Drance. And this woman's got a resume that is longer than my arm. It's like she's done so many things. She's taught medicine at university level, and she's taught about science and reproduction. The woman knows. She's retired now, but the woman's been doing this for 50 years?
Oh, she's the ultimate resource.
She has been into this through and through.
Yeah.
So let's listen in to what the good doctors had to say about this.
You don't learn your gender identity nor your sexual orientation either. You discover them as you grow up, and it doesn't take long. Most kids know what their gender identity is by about the age of 4 or so.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Nice. That's a great answer.
I'd be glad to share with the audience what we do know about the science of gender identity, because it's a story that involves everyone, not just trans people. I mean, the point is that it's a brain thing, yes, and the brain is organized before birth, then gets activated later, usually at puberty for most purposes, and then you are who you are. And everybody's an individual. I have to tell you that the only thing binary about sex and sexuality, and I've given this a lot of thought, is the gametes.
Mm-hmm.
There's only eggs and sperm. I've never heard of something in between or a third option. Okay? But when it comes to the people who make the gametes, well, they're all of them individuals. It's an interesting story because the physiological mechanism of sexual development is the same mechanism in everyone. But we tweak the genes, we tweak the hormone levels and the timing and the thresholds, and we tweak the epigenetics. And the outcome is individuals, each of us. I mean, nature generates way more diversity than these conservative folks in your part of the world seem to be able to wrap their brains around. And then, unfortunately, is a problem all over the world for people who have been brought up in a culture with that Adam and Eve story.
So I guess mainly the problem is people, I think, are having a hard time defining sex versus gender. In the old days, these two words were interchangeable. Today, and it's a fairly new thing in the realm of science. It means they're different. They have different meanings. I think people have a hard time wrapping their heads around that.
Well, sex, first of all, is a very complicated thing. It has many levels. I'm talking about, yes, your physical anatomy. It starts with chromosomes and gonads and hormones and genitalia, external, internal, and what we have not considered up until very recently is the brain itself, which is probably the most important part of this whole story.
And that was Dr. Drance.
I just love her. She is so knowledgeable.
Yeah.
And by the time she gets through explaining all the various components that make each individual unique, you have to say, I mean, if you're any kind of a moral and intellectual and scientific person at all, you say, of course, that's the way it is.
Yes, exactly.
There's no refuting the science of what she says, and there are no arguments that you can come back with to say, I need to discriminate against this person because they're an aberration of nature.
Exactly. As soon as we started talking to her, I felt my IQ climb. So now it's in the double digits, which is nice.
Yeah, and I'm right behind you.
But I really love her no nonsense approach. It's like no, she's not pussyfooting around.
No.
She's not gonna be politically correct at you. She's gonna tell you you're an idiot. This is not what's happening here, and this is what's happening in A, B, C, D. Why? Because I know I've done the science. So screw you. And I love that about her.
Yeah.
She's some people might even call her even a bit abrasive in that sense. But you know what? This is actually what is a bit needed.
I mean, the years of having to contradict nonsense and myth and religion. She's got to develop that abrasive. That's fine.
It must be extremely frustrating. I always think it must be extremely frustrating for her because here's a woman who's been dedicating a big chunk of her life studying the subject, and she's gone through and through. And even though she's retired now, she still keeps up with it. She still has her contacts, she still has her colleagues and all that stuff, and she still keeps up with it. And then comes this Joe Blow out of nowhere, who thinks that, he's read the Bible once or twice. He hasn't even read it. He's heard some passage from a pastor, and boom, he's going to contradict one. It's like, no, sit down at the kids' table, and I totally understand where she's coming from. I totally get it.
Yeah, no, she's just great. Once you, I mean, even though we agree with her and we know this, the way she presents it and being such an authority, it's just great to listen to her.
Yeah.
Repeat that science over and over until hopefully it gets through to people who are reluctant to accept it.
It's one of the things I like about her too. She's an academic, but she's not. She's explaining this to us lay people in an easy way for us to understand.
Yeah.
For me to understand anyway.
Yeah.
I thought she was a very good guest.
Yeah, and it was a very serious topic, and I'm so glad we did it. And I hope we can do it something like that again.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. We'll have to call her again.
Yeah.
All right, moving on.
Number 2.
Okay, we're down to the wire here. Coming out at number 2, we had, speaking of professors, Professor Jerry Coyne. Always a favorite, our favorite evolutionary biologist.
Oh, yeah.
And this time he talked to us about free will.
That's right, he did.
Yeah, it was another interesting show. Not a really super funny show, but it was, we certainly had a lot of interesting discussion with Jerry Coyne.
Oh, he's a powerhouse intellect.
And it's quite the controversy. He believes that we don't have free will. It's an illusion, and that's interesting to see if, he's correct or not. So let's listen in to Dr. Jerry Coyne and his thoughts about free will. Dr. Coyne, I had the immense pleasure of meeting you once in person at Imaginal Religion, which you left a great impression. I brought you a bottle of Crown Royal as a good Canadian ambassador.
Yeah, that got consumed. Thank you for that.
No problem.
That's Canadian, by the way, isn't it?
It is. It's Canadian rye.
So we don't have to worry about a price going up.
Dr. Coyne, you're very well known in Chicago and south of the 49. You might not be as well known up north here. Would you be so kind to give us a quick bio on Jerry Coyne?
Well, career-wise, I was trained and practiced as an evolutionary geneticist doing genetic analysis of the origin of species for about 35 years, most of my career. So that's what I'm known for professionally, but I also sort of write popular books and articles in magazines, and that's sort of a second career, which has got me embroiled in various controversies about religion and free will, which I guess is the topic of today's discussion. And beyond that, I'm just, an average guy who does genetics. So.
An average guy who does genetics.
I wish I could do genetics. I love
don't think there's such a thing as an average guy who does genetics.
I know, it's just wonderful when you reduce it to that one simple sentence. There goes 35 years of your life down the drain in one simple sentence.
I enjoyed it. That is my position. I don't think we have free will, but I have to explain what people mean by free will, because there's a lot of different definitions, and I'm taking the definition of free will that is the one accepted by religionists, but also by the average person. Surveys in 4 countries where they asked people, what they meant by free will, the vast majority of people, from like 70 to 85%, said it means that if in a given situation, with all the molecules in the universe arrayed as they are, you could do only one thing. And if that situation were obtained again with every parameter exactly the same, you would do exactly the same thing again. In other words, your actions are determined by the laws of physics, and you don't really have a choice in the sense of being able to change your actions based on some kind of nebulous dualistic mentality. So that's the classical definition of free will. It's the one that religious people use, like Christians, when they say, well, you can choose or not choose to accept Jesus Christ as your Savior. That assumes you have the ability to make that choice, to do something other than what you did. And that's the kind of free will that people think obtains, and that's the kind of free will that I vehemently reject.
And that was Dr. Jerry Coyne. A controversial topic, to say the least.
It's a hot topic, isn't it?
Yeah, it absolutely is. Yeah. Every time this topic is brought up, no matter where it is, there's huge, battles of philosophy that occur. I'm always struck by the implication of, let's say he's correct, and at this point I don't really see why he wouldn't be, but who am I to say that? Let's say he's correct. Those are huge implications towards our system and the way we live in this world. Think about the judicial system, for example. What does this mean? If you don't have free will, then, can you really blame a criminal for doing a crime?
I think we got into that.
We did get a bit into that too, right? So it was one of those episodes that gave you food for thought, for sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
And he's so confident and so easy, in his explanations. You're talking to someone who has just vast intellect and resources and everything. He's so fluid in being able to, and yet he's so down to earth and easy to talk to as well. So it's wonderful to have him as a guest too. There we go, complimenting our guest.
Another guest. It's one of the things I really find absolutely amazing about our little show is the caliber of some of the guests we have on.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, if this wasn't for the show, there is no way in hell I could see any point in my life where I would have encountered Jerry Coyne and talked to him about free will or evolutionary biology. If it would have just continued on the same mundane life not that my life is extraordinary today, but the mundane life that I had before doing this podcast, there's no way in hell I would have encountered these fantastic artists and intellectuals and authors and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
It's a dream come true. It's like a person sitting in a library reading an article by Jerry Coyne or reading David Fitzgerald's books or whatever, and saying to yourself, that's one person I really would like to talk to. And you're never going to do it. It's just, there's a guy or a woman that I'd really like to talk to. And we are so lucky to have the opportunity to do exactly that.
Exactly that.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And for our audience, we, I guess, vicariously can take them on the same. We do.
Let's hope we do. Let's hope we do anyway.
Yeah,
Let's hope we take the audience with us on that journey. All right. Before we do into number one, I wanted to put in a couple of special mentions.
Ooh, okay.
And the first one is we did a show on the plight of the wild salmon with Damian Gillis at the beginning of the year. It had some high numbers, and I wanted to put it in the top 10. The reason why I didn't quite put it in the top 10 because it felt like it was a show that was very local, and now a lot of our audience is mixed between Canada and the U.S. We actually have a bigger audience in the United States now as compared to Canada. So I didn't want to put it necessarily in the top 10, but I did want to give you a bit of although the wild salmon issue is not just a BC thing, it is also happening in the United States as well. They do have some problems with salmon as well down there in the States. But it was an interesting show that we did with Damian Gillis, who's been following the industry. But because it had too much of a local flavor to it, that's why I didn't include it in the top 10. But I did want to make it a special mention. So let's take a quick peek at Damian Gillis and the plight of the wild salmon.
I think be very fairly described as a captured regulator. And that is a phenomenon that we've seen it happen in the oil and gas sector and other places. It's when an industry becomes so powerful that it takes over the government regulator that's supposed to be watching it on behalf of the public and the environment.
Mm-hmm.
And so what we see here is a real pattern of the Department of Fisheries and Oceans and the provincial agriculture veterinary lab, which does a lot of the auditing of the health of the fish farms, really going out of their way to accommodate the industry. And when new science is happening and using cutting-edge genomic testing methods out of the Pacific Biological Station in Nanaimo, and an institute called the Strategic Salmon Health Initiative, for a 3-year period, they were studying a disease on a salmon farm, and came to the conclusion that this disease was here in BC, despite the industry and government having maintained for years that no, it isn't. And when they came ready to publish these findings or to announce them to the public, what we see is a public relations war being waged within DFO, very much influenced by and catering to the industry.
And that was Damien Gillis talking about the wild salmon industry.
Yeah, and anyone who's interested can go back, and look at our.
Oh, absolutely! It was at the beginning of the year that we did that. One of the first shows we did in 2018. The funny thing is when I'm looking at the top 10 there, it seems our this year audience really liked a lot of our funny shows as well, but the top shows are the serious ones, with serious topics. So maybe it's telling us that
on us, we have to think.
Maybe that's what we have to do for 2019. We have to put a bit more serious shows instead of more funny shows.
Well, and I'm hoping that the listeners will let us know what type of shows that they'd like and suggest some guests that they'd like to hear, and then that's why we're here. We'd love to hear from people that have some definite opinions, and let's follow through and
absolutely
make everybody happy.
We're here to help you. We're here to serve.
Yes.
All right, and another special mention before we go to number one, because we couldn't leave this one out, because we did a very special show this year, a bit between mid and to the end of October, where marijuana was legalized in Canada, and we got stoned for a show. Oh boy, what can you say about that show?
Well, that's my favorite.
That was your favorite?
Yeah, and you can play the clips, but I'll tell you why afterward. But I realized that wasn't, it was honorable mention, and it wasn't in the top 10. But I'm very fond of that show.
It was a very special show. So
special is a good word, operative word.
So let's quickly do a quick listen as to what that sounded like. We just lit up.
Usually when I drink Kevin coffee, it's a little more on the bitter side than what I personally like. But today it's like perfect.
It is. It's really good for me, and I'm sober. So
okay, so it might just be really good coffee.
Yeah, maybe, but no, I'm interested because when you took the candy before, did the candy taste better?
Oh, sorry. I don't know. Maybe it's hard to tell because I was taking it to get a flavor out of my mouth, so I don't know. I wasn't really tasting it. I was kind of just chewing and.
I may be expecting too much.
Yeah.
Oh,
I will know. I have no idea.
I hope we're doing this right. Oh my god.
Well, I feel a little weird. So I'm pretty sure.
Well, I always feel a little weird, so I'm not sure that's a good idea yet. But
well, no, I have a pretty good gauge on my internal
weirdness.
Existence.
Are you sensitive to drugs normally?
I have never taken any drugs before. Well, I've taken.
Well, I'm just talking medications.
Not really. No, I'm not overly sensitive.
Okay.
Well, at least Nancy is staying sober.
Yes.
One of us has to run things.
Yeah, I'm the one running things, and I'm the one coughing here. Oh my god, did I press record yet?
Yeah.
Just kidding.
Oh my god, Kevin.
So we'll have
literally,
to see.
I was like, oh no, you have to press record.
Yeah. We'll have to see how these guys hold up at the end.
Yeah,
of the show.
Exactly, and we'll see how everything goes.
For me, this is my first time ever having any kind of drug.
First in a long.
Hold on, I gotta block you here for half a second. Are you guys feeling some effects by now?
Yes.
Okay.
I think so.
Are you?
I don't know.
Right now, I feel like I'm falling.
Wait, really? Oh God, I'm jealous.
I might be feeling kind of the same thing you are.
You know, it's like sinking.
Yeah, what I'm feeling is it feels like, and I figured this out.
I'm sorry, Nancy. I didn't mean to interrupt. I just wanted.
No.
I just noticed that. Is that okay?
To any of our Canadian listeners, if I end up being the lone voice in Stoner City saying, "Help me," please.
How do you stop the recording? How do you stop the recording?
Please send an email or
The only thing you're in danger of is
it's like there's a heavy something dripping down over my body,
Well,
and it feels like it's pulling all of my like.
You feel like you're melting down.
Yeah, it's like you're melting. It was really funny because I took the relaxing, Kevin took the mixing, Christina took the hyper.
You think she didn't do it right? She didn't inhale right enough.
But I held it in. Okay, this is my first time. I don't know what I'm doing.
And just how like the feeling over like you and I both have the melting, the
Throw
falling.
me the chips. I want the chips.
Which ones?
I don't know. One of the things. That one. Sure. Why not?
Don't throw it. Yeah, it's okay. Okay, no, that is really loud.
Okie doke, here we go.
Despite what my brain is telling me that my motor functions are slow, I think I know enough to know that they're still working.
And 3 of us have partaken in the herb already.
All right.
So
We wanted to get some of it done before Nancy got here because we didn't want her accidentally getting high.
yeah, because she's a trained assassin, so you never know.
She's a what?
She's not actually.
She's a trained assasin.
Oh, wow.
Oh,
yeah.
I just put my earphones on. Are you discussing my professional attributes again?
That's right.
Everybody's going to know, and then it's no fun. You don't want to sneak up behind somebody and have them say, "Oh,
you're here to kill me."
Can I have your autograph before you do away with me? You know, I don't want to become a revered public figure. I want to be a dark, shadowy assassin.
Right now, Rich is totally regretting taking this goal.
Don't worry, Rich. Everyone feels that way at first, and then it gets worse.
Oh, that sounds awesome. Right.
And right now, when I'm at home by myself or just with Kirsten, like really just myself, that's kind of what I feel like right now. Holy Mother of God!
What'd you do?
She's just looking. She's just looking at some color. I don't know what she's looking at.
Kirsten,
but
you mind filling
it's
this in?
obviously very enjoyable.
You just gave her the phone. You gave her your phone. What's on the phone?
So pretty.
It's something I know she'll love. It's trees, but they're all in like bright,
colors.
vibrant fall colors, and it's like you're standing in the middle of
there's
them.
still some green ones too.
Okay, so it's just an image.
And yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so turn it this way and see.
Okay, it's a pretty picture.
pretty, but I mean, they're not vibrantly. They're not stimulating my brain over the top.
Yeah, it's just a very bright
Rich is
picture
laughing
of if
at
you're
all this when
standing
you get
in a little bit of a clearing in the middle of some trees.
I don't want to see it again.
And you look up and you take a picture
No, but they're so pretty.
with all of the fall colors and the bright blue sky behind it.
I apologize, Rich, for bringing you on the show today at this point.
No, I think this is great. That's exactly what marijuana is designed to do.
Yep. Let's just say we were a bit stoned.
Well, we talked about doing the show for quite a while.
Yes, we have.
And actually, at one point, we even wondered whether we should bring a nurse on or somebody just in case to put us, in a safe site.
Yeah.
So that, and we decided to take a risk, and that's what I love about this show, because I mean we take a risk every time we walk into this studio
for sure.
to do that, and we're very open about who we are and what we think. So that's not the thing. It's just that we were willing to put ourselves in an altered state and with no control, absolutely no control, other than where that drug was going to take us. And I think for the listener, it really gave a listener an insight into, well, how do people react to this? What happens? Maybe people don't know they don't get high. Maybe they don't know people who get high. They don't understand. And for us to take that leap, of here we are, just raw,
Yeah.
and this is how marijuana affected us. And then to have our guest, say, this is exactly what marijuana, is supposed to do. I think it was very brave, extremely brave of us to take, that episode and just
it was interesting.
run with it.
It was interesting for sure. I mean, we decided not to go like super heavy on the drug, right? I mean, we only basically had, one joint, if you can even say that, and there was a bit of a little bong hit here as well. And I wanted to be sober enough to be able to still do the control the show. And like I said, thank goodness you were there, because at some point I'm so lost. Like our guest was Rich Lyons, but
he was a great
I call him Ryan at some point.
Yeah,
because Rich Lyons, Ryan. It's like I totally got mixed up in everything, and then halfway through the show, I completely forget because he's got PTSD, and I completely forget. And I stopped the show and said, "Wait a minute, what was this medical condition again?" I could not focus to save my life. And it was an interesting experience.
But that's why we did the show, to see what happens to people when they smoke recreational drugs, cannabis, marijuana, whatever you want to call it. But I want to assure the audience that no one drove out of here on their own.
No one drove out of here.
We made sure that everybody got home safe. Of course, this was this is in your studio, so that was fine.
Yeah.
But we did take the precautions, in terms of our safety and public safety. It was all legal.
Yes.
There was nothing done that we
illegal.
were ashamed of, or that the police are going to come knocking at our door. So, but in many ways, it was risky for us to do it.
Yeah, it was.
Even though I had to stay sober because I was the one driving, and and I'm extremely sensitive to things. So
yes, and I'm glad we did the show, and it was interesting to see like Christina super bubbly at the best of times, and all of a sudden she just goes, "Wow, look at those colors!"
Yeah, she was even more so, but she took the stimulant one rather than the calming one, and Kirsten took the calming one, and she became a little more mellow.
And I'm there eating chips. I had to mix of both. And I'm there eating chips like I don't care. And normally I'm trying my best not to put some extra sounds, the whole time you can hear me munch on chips. It was an interesting show, for sure.
It was. It was a break. It just totally broke with everything else that we
traditionally do.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. It was certainly worth a mention.
Yeah, I would have put it up there, but that would have been very narcissistic, I think, because it was just us.
Yes,
and here we are praising us, but that's okay. We can do it because it's our show.
All right.
But it was. I thought it was just, totally off the charts. And I'm happy we did it, and I don't ever want to do it again.
Okay, moving on. Number 1.
And in our final position, our number 1 position.
Ta-da!
You want to venture a guess?
No, I have no, because I love them all. It's hard. They're all like my children. I can't pick a favorite kid.
That's fair enough. Well, we did a little show called Looking Back with Arn Raw.
Oh,
his rawness comes in number 1 yet again. Are we surprised? Not really. Whenever Arn comes on, we love him.
Yeah, we do.
He's such a fantastic guy.
He is.
He's so relatable. He's so brilliant. He's that guy you want to hang and have a beer with.
Yeah.
I am not surprised at all.
And he's the kind of guy that wants to hang and have a beer with you too.
And he's so nonchalant about it.
Yeah.
So, all right, guys, what are we talking about today? That's the way he is.
Yeah.
And he was nothing but gracious the few times we had him on the show, and the time we had him in person at the same time with his wife Landra. I remember that. That was fantastic. I picked him up at the airport in Richmond, and then we drove here like about 45 minutes to an hour away to come here to Abbotsford to do the show, and then he went back with Aaron. That's saying a lot about the guy.
He's a powerhouse presence.
Yes.
And wrapped, in just such a nice, gentlemanly. He really is. He's just a wonderful gentleman in so many different ways.
Absolutely.
He's a treasure.
There is only one Arn Raw.
Yeah.
So let's listen in to our number one clip, as voted per you, the audience, this year. Our number one show, Looking Back with Arn Raw. And have your knuckles recovered from giving that pounding to Kent Hovind?
I didn't feel like I could fairly call it a pounding. I mean, all I did was ask him the same question a whole bunch of times and try to explain to him what the question meant, to have him be unable to formulate what any of that was, what was even going on.
Okay, well, we'll probably agree that it was a good slap in the face at the very least.
Yeah. Hey, wake up. That's what it was. But it doesn't make any difference to the story either way. He's being surrounded by dogs who are biting at his hands and feet. Either translation, that's what it means. But the Christians, somehow, because it says pierced his hands and feet, they take this whole story about David, which is always talking about David, until it gets right up to this line. And this line suddenly becomes a prophecy about Jesus. How? Why? Because they pierced his hands and feet. That's not a prophecy.
No, it's not. It certainly isn't.
This is not remotely a prophecy. I mean, and this was somebody, this is their favorite prophecy. Clearly does not say. And I have these arguments all the time where they say, well, the Bible says, really, it does? Where does it say that? And they can't show me where it says that. But then when I say what the Bible says, they say, it doesn't say that. And I'm, oh, yeah, it does. I'll show you right there. And they will close the book, or they will flee the building.
I so want to see that. I so want to see somebody flee from Arn.
Run away from your problems.
Arn, you're taking it out of context. I'm so sorry. You just don't understand.
Yeah, there's the thing. The prophecy has to be out of context. It has to suddenly no longer be a story about David, because there's one sentence that had the word pierced hands and feet, which means now suddenly we're talking about Jesus. What? Because we were reading about David until somebody saw a squirrel?
That's a pretty grim picture you're putting us into there.
Like I said, nobody wants to hear that, because it's the scariest story there is.
It is. It is. Absolutely is. And sometimes, as Canadians, we're looking at this with a lot of dread, unfortunately.
Well, let me see if I can put that on a positive note, that if that's at all possible. This is one of the reasons that Elon Musk is my favorite living human right now.
I know. I love him.
Yeah, because he's made these sacrifices of himself for the betterment of humanity. Now, he's an uber dork in many respects, and a super nerd, but the guy did at least defy what derogatory adjective can I apply to our fossil fuel industry? But these people don't want people to have electric cars. They want you to believe that there's not enough lithium in the world to give people electric cars. They definitely don't want anybody to have mass transit systems, so they fight against that too. They want everything to be dependent on oil, even though we've consumed a planet's worth in a century.
And that was no other than Arn Raw as well.
That man is one of the most intellectually curious people that I know.
Yes.
If he starts with, if there's a question that he does not have the answer to, he will not rest.
Yes.
Until he finds, the answer, make sure it's the definitive answer, make a video about it, share it with everybody, find something funny to say about it along the way, and just be perfectly charming or perfectly irritating, depending
on which side of the argument you're on.
Which side you're on. And I mean, his knowledge and the fact that he goes to school, he takes classes to understand things, even better, to make sure that what he says is 100% accurate before he repeats it to anyone else. He's just a great mentor and someone that I hate to say the word idolize, but I do respect. And,
yes.
Yeah, I guess I do idolize him in some ways.
You have nothing. I have nothing but respect for the man either. I mean, he speaks like an academic, but he's not an academic. He's one of us, and I think that's what attracts people to him right away. And what's particular about this clip here, it was jumping from topic to topic there, from prophecy, and then we started talking about the environment. He's not just a one-string fiddle, People talk to Aaron Raw about atheism, obviously, and Christians and stuff like that. But I think I want to do a show with Aaron about something like the environment, which I know he's very passionate about. Because we can bring on scientists all we want, but people, even if you bring a scientist and we do the facts, people don't necessarily relate to scientists as well, but they can relate to Aaron. And maybe that's what we need to do. Bring a guy like Aaron says, you know what, I've seen the science too, and this is what the hell is happening. And maybe people will listen a bit more. So I'm actually thinking of next time we bring him on, we might actually do something that's not atheism related at all. Let's talk about another of his topics that he's very passionate about.
Yeah, that would be great. And I hope our listeners are well acquainted with Aaron and watch some of his videos.
Oh, yeah. I mean, the phylogeny project he's doing is just absolutely monumental and fantastic.
Yeah.
You can almost have a degree in biology just watching his videos. It's pretty incredible stuff.
Yeah, he's great. He's great. He and Liliana are just... They're a great, wonderful couple, and I'm glad he's so willing to come on our show when we ask him. That's great. That's very gracious of him.
And there we go. That was the top 10 of Left in the Valley 2018. I hope you guys enjoyed that. I hope you guys enjoyed the year. And you can always let us know if you send us an email at leftatvalley@outlook.com. If anything else you'd like to listen to or hear or a topic you'd like us to take on, we're certainly open.
Thank you for being part of our listening family.
Absolutely.
And thank you to those people that have taken the time to send us a card, a letter, a comment, a suggestion, a complaint.
Absolutely.
I've been out on that balcony, waiting for those complaints, and thank goodness we don't have too many.
We don't have much of them at all. You can follow us at leftatvalley.com. You can follow us on Facebook, on Twitter, at LATV Podcast. Send us an email, like I said, leftatvalley@outlook.com. Give us a 5-star review wherever you find us. It helps others find the show. It helps us as well. My dear Nancy, thank you so much for being with us another year.
Yeah, and
come and gone.
I know it's hard to believe. Thanks to to Kirsten and Christina and all those other people that make our show so enjoyable.
Think of all the more productive stuff we could be doing if we weren't doing this right now.
Rather be doing this. Yes. Rather be doing this anytime.
A little therapy session.
Between this and being an assassin, my life is complete.
Are we looking forward to the next year?
Oh, aren't we though?
Oh, we certainly are.
Yeah.
So next week, I'm not exactly sure what's going to happen here. We were supposed to have a guest, but he had to bail out at the last second there. So I might actually give us a week off if we don't have a guest. We'll find out. You guys deserve a week off. So. After all the hard work you put in. My dear Nancy, thank you so much for being with me today.
Oh, such a pleasure.
And thank you to our audience for being with us.
You betcha.
Until next time.
Something to be ashamed. I'm an atheist. I'm an atheist. I'm an atheist. Now let me take a sec. Don't mean to sound so hateful, but I swear to God, pun intended, I find it disgraceful that thousands of children are raped by priests, and since they're holy men of God, they get away scot-free. And the Pope does his very best to keep it on the hush. Don't wanna affect business, he loves money too much. We know that they love the kids, but how the fuck can we protect them while they planning to molest them? We teaching them to respect them. Fuck that. The system is broke down, working backwards, and the only action or tactic I plan to practice now is to attack them. The parties of God's hands are bloodstained, millions of murders by believers, and they're all in God's name. And let me take a sec, don't mean to sound so hateful, but I swear to God, pun intended, I find it disgraceful that many atheists are told to be